Hello, and welcome back to the Freedom to Exit podcast. I'm Lani Dickinson, your host, and today we are in our third episode of our Scale Smart series and episode 19 of the podcast. Today, we're going to talk about the hidden mistakes that sabotage growth, which is really the unsexy stuff, the painful stuff, and also not sexy. These are the things that most business owners don't see until it's too late. The truth is, scaling a business doesn't just add stress. It multiplies whatever's already broken. And that's the painful part. So if the wheels are falling off, pretty soon it feels like an earthquake's happening, right? So if you're leaking leads, mismanaging delivery, or growing without a really solid foundation, you're not scaling. You're setting yourself up for a crash. And we've talked a lot about that in the prior couple of episodes. So let's fix that before it costs you your team, your margin, and eventually the ability to exit. So I want to talk about Blockbuster versus Netflix. Think about this for a minute. In the early 2000s, Blockbuster had every advantage. They had stores in every market. They had a team. They had all kinds of stuff, right? They were obsessed with in-store experience. My kids still remember going to pick out their tape and then the candy and all the stuff. But, it was kind of an event to go to Blockbuster and get the weekend's movies. While that was happening, Netflix was very unsexy. I used to get these. That's how old I am. The white little package with the CD in it, in a red sleeve. Very unsexy, boring. It was optimizing systems and logistics and consistency. They weren't as worried about what it looked like or what the experience of it was. It was very efficient. You put in your list and then the next one would come when they get the CD back. Blockbuster kept focusing on their retail footprint while Netflix was streamlining delivery and followed up religiously on CDs and DVD reminders that hadn't come back and smart packaging and improving the speed in which you received the next movies. Netflix scaled and Blockbuster failed. That happens in small business today at a smaller scale, but that is exactly what's happening for entrepreneurs and small business owners today who don't think about how to scale smart. So let's talk about how this might be playing out in your business right now. Here are some of the universal mistakes that kill scale. Scaling before stabilizing. So I've talked a little bit about this in the past, and this is why I focus on optimization. We use data, make decisions, do something different, measure, and keep going. So if you don't know your customer churn rate, your close rate by sales rep, if you don't know what it costs to deliver, like down to the cent of how many pencils you're using, how many pieces of paper you're using, what each traffic source costs. If you don't understand that, then you don't know your margin. You may be delivering service at a loss. That means you're not ready to add more. I had an offer when I was first starting to replace my corporate income. And it started as a done with you, kind of like get clear on your avatar and launch your expertise kind of a business. And it was done with you kind of group coaching, and it started out as $6,000. I could see that the problem everybody was having is they would come to the next call and they hadn't done their homework. They hadn't done their research. They hadn't talked to the audience. So we don't know if we really have an offer, but the rest of the group has moved on to writing the copy. So I started adding more done with you sessions that were focused on exactly the next step. And in the beginning, I just was doing that at my cost because it was just my time. Do you hear that? Just my time. But time's the one thing we can't get back, right? So eventually then with automation, I started adding in drag and drop things like a sales page that could be edited instead of waiting for them to learn how to build it because they were brand new in their business. So they did I'm going to learn how to do everything rather than pay somebody to do it. So they were not yet who, not how entrepreneurs. So at the end of the year, this offer came up to $25,000 and it was still the same outcome. They just went faster because what I realized is they knew they wanted to start the business, but they hadn't yet dealt with how do I execute consistently? So I had to find a way to overcome the lack of execution. And that started with we'll just meet more and I'll hold hands more. And then it got into how do I just drag the solution into their account? I could not have scaled that to replace my full corporate income had I kept delivering more small group sessions to get the result, right? So scaling before stabilizing is a crash and burn pattern. So let's talk about in home services, the mistakes you should look for. We'll talk about home services, professional services, online coaching, and e-commerce. That's what we've been focusing on in this series. So if your owner is still doing estimates and involved in any part of the scheduling, you have a problem in the home services space. If you're not tracking calls and using automated lead capture that has AI follow-up, remember in several episodes, I have talked about Mike's HVAC company, where the sales team told me every day that it was a dead lead list. But as soon as we installed some AI sorting and automation, pretty soon they added a couple $1 million to their revenue, to their top line, and kept even more in profit from that dead leads list, right? Expanding to another city before you are fully dominating in one zip code. If you can't manage logistics and you can't get traction on your offer in one zip code, and then you add another city that now you have travel and potentially a second office and all of that, you're multiplying the problems and spreading yourself more thin. But people just think, I need more. It's the number one complaint I get. I need more leads, right? Hiring techs with no process and having inconsistent delivery. That makes sense, right? But not collecting reviews in home services and then not responding to them is kind of a death nail. I do a live webinar every week where I talk about AI and automation. And in that webinar, I attach a statistic to just about everything I say. And not collecting reviews and then not responding to reviews is the death nail to just about any business, but especially home services. Now, today I find most home services people understand that they need to focus on their Google My Business, but there's still not enough reviews and definitely not enough responses. So I encourage you to sign up for that webinar and really understand how you can use AI and automation to stop leaking money out of your business for things you don't have time to do, like collecting and responding to reviews, because it is real money at the end of the day. Here's some real world examples. I talk a lot about a salon owner who had a receptionist who was telling people you don't need the upsells that the owner's going to give you. And that's more about using AI and automation to get people to stay on script and do the sales you need them to do. But this was a salon owner who added a new lead magnet to come see us, but didn't have follow-up set up. So they launched this free offer to bring in new clients, but the front desk wasn't following up and there was no salespeople in the building. So they didn't get new appointments booked. They would say something soft like, would you like to schedule your next appointment? And so the offer flopped and everyone blamed the marketing team that they hired. But every marketing company you ever are going to hire is going to say, I found you leads, but you didn't follow up appropriately. And at the end of the day, that's true, because when we install AI and automation in people's companies, we figure out without adding anything else, revenue goes through the roof. And that is because salespeople don't follow the process. They don't follow up enough times. I talk a lot about that in that webinar. There was a law firm that hired 3 new paralegals, but they didn't have any onboarding for the paralegals. 6 weeks later, documents aren't filed correctly. It's pure chaos. The founder has to step in and start micromanaging and dealing with client complaints because the new people weren't trained in anything. Nobody could find any paperwork. It was all in the owner's head. And so the owner had to start solving all the problems, which meant all of the evenings were gone fixing existing client issues, and they couldn't bring on any new clients for a few weeks. So that's a revenue problem, right? There's an e-commerce brand that killed return on ad spend trying to add TikTok, and they hadn't really done anything with their Google. So Google's not optimized, but they're trying to learn something like TikTok, which is also funnel optimization after they click and, all of those things. So ad costs tripled and sales stayed flat. They did not realize that Google was producing a 1.4 times return and abandoned cart emails hadn't been turned on. So these basics have to be in place before you start going on to the next thing. So here's how you fix it before you scale it. You got to know your metrics. You got to run a metric audit. What does it cost you to acquire a customer? What is the lifetime value of a customer? What is your close rate by person who's responsible to close? What is the churn rate? How many people rebuy from you and how long does it take them to do that? What does it cost you to truly deliver the results that you're promising? If you don't know those things, you're in big trouble. You're at risk to lose money while building revenue, right? You have to fix your lead follow-up. That's always going to go back to automation and AI. Most humans stop attempting to close a sale after the first attempt. I think it's 44% after the first attempt. Another 8% will try a second time, but after that, nobody's following up. But it takes 8 to 12 times to close a sale. So you absolutely need AI and automation to be able to do that. And if somebody needs 7 to 12 touches, the nurture sequence really needs to be built out with lots of video and nailed pain points in the emails and downloads of things that they can test you out on. You have to have all of your contacts in one place with tags so that you know who's consuming what and what is the next sequence you need to create. You have to simplify delivery. You have to have SOPs. And when something doesn't work, you have to go back and update the SOP and say, why didn't it work? Why didn't it work for us? Why didn't it work for the client? How are we going to improve that? Then update the SOP and then say, okay, let's run it 3 more times this new way and see, did it get better? If we can use checklists and templates and pre-built pathways, everybody feels better. Everybody knows this is what my next step is. You have to streamline your offers. One core offer is way better than 3 half-built ones, and you can understand why. If you have frustrated people in 3 different offers, you are much better to just focus on one and make it hum, and then think about, do I really want to offer something else? You want to automate 80% or more of your administrative, the calendaring, the payments, the forms, the onboarding. Put in all your links here before they're ever a client. Just everything you can automate, you want to automate. That is going to drop a lot of profit to the bottom line. And in this day and age, there's so much that's drag and drop. You don't have to learn how to build this stuff from scratch. Always ask yourself, can this be automated, eliminated, delegated, or done by AI? And if the answer is yes, that means you're going to have more profit, simpler service delivery, and better outcomes. So I'd encourage you to take the changes assessment to see where your system is leaking revenue right now. You can get that in the show notes. You can download our free Freedom to Scale field guide and find the checklist that applies to your business type. And this field guide is amazing. I actually just created it 2 weeks ago, and we're making it look beautiful, but I am just so proud of this field guide. I think you're going to love it. So you want to go download that right away. And you can register for our AI employee webinar to figure out where you can stop leaking money with a robot doing things that humans are actually bored doing. The biggest thing there is you will capture all of your leads and suddenly your revenue goes up without you adding any marketing or traffic costs. Smart scale starts with fixing the cracks before you ever try to grow, much less scale. So patching them together with duct tape is not the answer. Filling the problems with you working till midnight is not the answer. So download some of these things, attend that webinar, and let's start building smart. As always, I'd love for you to subscribe or share this episode with somebody who needs it. And we will see you on the next episode in our Scale Smart series. Thank you so much for joining us today.